what I'd probably say for me, especially.
Brilliant. Cool answer. Frances, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I totally agree with Rose and all the points she has. Like, there's many things that I think can break or make young athletes during your teenage years. I think looking back also is definitely during the age 15 to 18 was making sacrifices, like your social life, your friends, family and events, and also education, like studying and your exams. But I think also being able to manage all of these as well, like ensuring that I have a balanced life and not getting too burnt out too early. And also when I went to boarding school, I had to be quite self-responsible and have some of my own responsibility, as I didn't have my parents nagging me in the ear, getting me up early to go for those early runs or early trainings. So, yeah.
Yeah, so you're having to do that all yourself.
Yeah, definitely having to do all that by myself during those last 3 years at high school.
Yeah, cool. Amy, your thoughts?
I think for me, kind of like Rosie, just being resilient with everything you do, and like you're not always going to make the A team, and it's how hard you work after not making it. So just that it's okay to not be in the top team from the start, and that it's how hard you fight after that. And then also I think what really helped was just the real good support by your friends and family who were always encouraging. And like I had a really good friend network who was right into sport, which was very helpful, and not always missing out on things because they were in the same situation.
Yeah, cool. Fantastic answer. Sam, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think sort of similar to what Fran said at the end there. I think learning that sort of self-responsibility piece quite early on. I think, my parents were extremely supportive and would support my decisions around kind of what I wanted to do, but it was sort of up to me to work hard for it. So whether, it was going for a run to keep fit, they weren't going to like make me do it or tell me to do it or hold my hand and walk me out the door. Like that was something that I had to make. I had to make that decision and do it myself. Even I had 5 siblings in my household, so quite often I had to organize myself to get a ride to the turf. And like at the time it probably was quite frustrating, but I genuinely think that kind of learning how to be responsible for my own actions quite early on meant that when things got a bit tougher, I wasn't relying kind of on that external motivation or help when things got a little bit more difficult. So yeah, I think as an athlete, that self-responsibility is huge, because as soon as your parents aren't there to help you, you have to figure things out for yourself pretty quickly.
Cool. So that's a really good message for the parents out there, to be supportive where you can, but don't do everything for the athletes, as it were. It's probably not going to help them in the long run. That the key things that's kind of jumped out for me there were the resilience piece, obviously being able to adapt to change and those kind of things. The work ethic, the being organised, kind of, I think it's a critical part of getting you through, and that self-responsibility piece, taking responsibility for what needs to be done. And I kind of quite like Amy's little line there. It's kind of how hard you work after not making it, which leads into, again, self-responsibility, resilience and work ethic. So being organised. So yeah, great answers, ladies. Just moving on to the next question. Just again, still staying in that kind of transitional time, that 15 to 18 spot. What was the single biggest difficulties that you faced at that stage of your development, and kind of what did you learn from it? And maybe we'll start back with Sam this time.
Yeah, I think there was a few that kind of stand out for me, but I definitely think one of the most difficult ones was achieving the balance, whether it was across different hockey teams or different sports. I wanted to do everything and be involved a lot of the time. And as an athlete, you were often dealing with different coaches, and they wanted you to have 100% involvement in their team or their program. And sometimes you had 3 or 4 or 5 of those at once to deal with. And I think at the time, I wanted to do everything. And it just has the potential, I think, to have quite a negative impact. So whether it's, making athletes more prone to injury because they're just completely overworked, or burning out quite early on because they're involved in so many teams of the same sport. At the same point, I don't think it's about wrapping people in cotton wool at all. I just think that I would encourage people to kind of look at what they're doing, because I know that I probably did way too much, and I didn't have the confidence or the skills, I don't think, always to talk to my coaches or talk to my teams about sort of how to manage that. I also think that sometimes when you're in even like some of the school teams, those coaches want you to be in a leadership role, and often being in a leadership role is exhibiting things like going to training, but that might be the one training that you actually need to step away from because you've got so much going on. So yeah, just giving kids those confidence and that skills to kind of talk to their coaches and stuff to see if they can manage that balance.
Yeah, cool. Great message. And that kind of aligns to a lot of the work that Sport New Zealand's doing in the Balance is Better space at the moment. I think really important how well we manage the workload of young people these days. And obviously you've experienced that yourself. Frances, your thoughts?
Mine's probably the same as Eddie, especially in like having the balance. In my first year at university, I probably got too caught up in the social life, as anyone would in their first year of uni, and being in the halls and O week and Rio week and all that. And it really showed because I didn't make any of the New Zealand teams, which I had been in the lead up to that age, and I didn't make the Junior World Cup qualifying team. And then I kind of kicked myself, and I was like, come on, Fran, like sort yourself out. So I definitely had to start making those sacrifices and dulling back on the social life a bit. And so then I worked hard and worked on my fitness, and then I made the World Cup team at the end of the year, where I then went on to debut. So it really shows that having that balance is so important in life. Yeah.
Cool. Great. And Rose?
Sorry, I've been muted. Probably I'd say the same message really from me, I guess. When you leave school, and I think especially for me, I didn't think that I would probably, I guess I hadn't thought about making the Black Sticks really. Like I didn't think that was a possibility as soon as I did, and I was actually planning on going overseas for a year with my friends, and then I didn't actually end up traveling because I planned this really extravagant trip, and my dad was sort of like, you're not going to Dubai on your own as a 17-year-old. So that sort of quickly changed my plans. I thought, I'm going to do this when I'm allowed to do this. But actually, I was probably quite lucky because in my first year of uni, I actually lived with Sam Charlton, who was already in the Black Sticks. So I had a good example to follow from quite early on. And she was extremely dedicated to her training, and I think, as she still is now, still tugs us along. Tugged us along.
Was Rose easy to mentor, Sam?
Oh, she was very keen and enthusiastic. So yeah, she worked just as hard as me.
But yeah, I think it is so challenging when you're that age to actually be able to be happy with sacrificing a fun social engagement to get up at 6 a.m. and train for your sport. And when you're not in the New Zealand team at the point, that you are probably at that age, people probably don't quite value the sacrifice as much as you do. And so you have that external pressure sort of being like, well, they don't really understand. And when you're young, you probably don't have the capacity to I guess what I'm trying to say is when you're that age, it's difficult to fully sacrifice and be comfortable with that sacrifice. So yeah, I'd probably say that the balance side of things was quite challenging. But you definitely get better at sacrifice and at balance, and it's all worth it when you actually put in the hard work and get to the point that we've got to, and you look back and it's definitely worth it. So easy in hindsight.
Yes, I checked in on the video of the Commonwealth Games 2018, and it looked like it was worth it when that whistle went, by the looks of things.
Yes.
Over to you, Amy. What's kind of one of the biggest difficulties you faced, and what did you learn?
I've got a couple, and for me, one of them would be just the travel constantly over to Hamilton and not having your own teammates who live there appreciate what you're doing. So I found that really hard and such a big stress on myself, and you obviously don't want to miss a training and you don't want to miss out. So I think looking back now, just like being able to talk to the coaches and say, like, this isn't okay that I'm the only one driving from Tauranga and getting back at 11 o'clock at night. So yeah, I would definitely change that if I could, but then I guess it's got me to where I am. So, but yeah, just having the support from the coaches, I would definitely recommend just talking to them, because it's not okay that like a young kid is driving over there twice a week, like, and coming back on their own. So yeah, that was pretty huge for me. And then also I did a lot of sports growing up, so just trying to balance like each code, not trying to like take me and make me do their sport. I wanted to do everything, so I stuck with athletics and beach volleyball and hockey, and I did all of them at once. And I think that's really important, to not let like one coach dictate what you're going to do, especially when you're still at school, because you don't know what you're going to achieve in the end. So yeah, I still did all of them, and I think that was really beneficial, getting the team aspect, individual aspect, and yeah, still being able to do what I love, so that when I came to doing hockey, I wasn't over it. And then when I went back to doing athletics, I was ready to go and get into the season. So I really recommend keeping your options wide open and don't limiting them like straight away.
Great. There's some great answers there, ladies. I think a couple of things jump out for coaches that are on this evening. Some messages there about loading and communication and understanding some of the sacrifices that are being made, and probably also the young people out there. One of the hardest parts, kind of thing, like when you're young, is to learn to say no. That that's too much for me, and I can't do all of that. You're happy to do everything that you can, but there's certain points in time where, as you say, you need to strike that balance. So really insightful answers there, ladies. I might just check in with Belinda and just see, Belinda, is there any messages in the chat at all?
Yes, we have one question. What sort of fitness do you recommend for 15 to 18-year-olds in addition to training?
Rose Keddell?
Yeah, Rosie might be able to.
Oh, well, from my extensive knowledge of strength and conditioning, I think it's really important, probably in a theme of what we've been talking about so far, is that your training is really mapped out, regardless of whether you're 25 and in the black sticks or 15 and just play for school. I think what Sam was talking about earlier about overtraining is a huge problem, and sometimes you don't actually see it in the 15-year-old, you see it in the 22-year-old when they come through the other side. So I would say you need to break down the week, so Monday right through to Sunday, and I would suggest probably for someone of that age, depending on how much they're doing, 1 to 2 rest days probably isn't out of the question, definitely 1. And then if they're struggling with fitness, if they're someone who's not maybe naturally fit, then if they're training hockey 2 to 3 times a week, you might be able to add in another 1 cardio session. But I'd really say at a young age, it's really important that you don't overdo it. So yeah, 1 to 2 extra cardio sessions, and there's plenty of sessions that you can do. They might just go for, like, I'm talking really specifically here, but they might do an extra, say, 20 to 30 minute steady state run, and then the other session is more interval based, so it might be 20 minutes of a good warm up and then 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off, which we as our skills in the team do a lot. So obviously that's really specific for one type of need, but there's a lot of different ways to do it. But you just it all needs to be mapped out, and making sure that you're not doing like 2 or 3 sessions a day. One thing I will say before I stop talking though is that our strength and conditioner, actually our physiologist, who's extremely knowledgeable and amazing, said that if you want to up your training and get fitter, make your hard days hard and your easy days easy. So don't try and have 7 moderate days. Monday might be hard where you have 2 sessions, Tuesday might be not much. It just gives your body that time to recover, which it really needs. So that's what I'll say.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Hang on, Dave.
Yeah.
I've got another really good question from Lily Pierce.
Cool.
She says, what techniques did you use to keep up with your schoolwork as well as your training?
Good one.
Don't ask me. This is not my area of expertise. Amy, you're conscientious.
Well, I guess sport was more for me at school, but like all of us. But definitely just like try and do little bits and you can. Like I find that not trying to like do lots of it at once, just do little bits, and then you could even go for your run. So you could do 20 minutes and then do a little circuit or whatever. Just I found personally keeping it short and sharp so that wasn't getting bored of one thing, but yeah, still managing to do both things.
Cool. Thanks there, ladies. We'll head through to the next one. No more Belinda at the moment. We'll come back to you a bit later.
And that's it for the moment, Dave.
Cool. Thanks, B. So kind of next kind of little topic here, just in and around coaching. Between you would have obviously had experience of multiple coaches over the course of your career, from when you were very little through to obviously the Black Six now. What would you consider are some of the key qualities of a really good coach, a really effective coach, but kind of outside of the technical and tactical stuff? What do they bring in other ways, the softer skills of coaching that you think are qualities of someone who's really effective? Start with Francis.
I guess probably one of the main ones would be communication. I think ensuring that they're getting their message across effectively, and it means that as players we're able to prepare better going into games. We understand what we're going to do in certain situation, and I think as of this we're able to get our chances are able to increase. But I also think as being a good communicator is also being a good listener as well, because I think players have such an important part in the team as well. Another thing is also, I think Amy touched on it earlier, is understanding that everyone's in different circumstances. As we said, we all had different other commitments outside our sport, and we can get caught up, especially at a younger age when we're developing. And especially now we're having to study, and I think what our coaches and the management now are doing well is managing our team so we can also study or work, and because obviously financially we can't do it full time and can't support our lifestyle, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I think really important that coaches out there know your story, know your journey, and know the issues that you're facing. So, it's going to help performance. Sam, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think when I sort of reflect on some of the coaches I've had, there's obviously like a huge raft of those quite generic traits that I think some of the better coaches certainly exhibit, being really organized and knowledgeable, and their ability to sort of drive and motivate a team or be vulnerable and show empathy. But I think probably the one in my mind, hugely effective is sort of what Fran touched on, is really being able to read their athletes and kind of adapt to what makes them tick without feeling like you're treating them like people unfairly or different. It can be quite hard, but I sort of think that taking the time to understand what drives and motivates each individual means that as a coach, there are probably really small things you can do to tailor to each athlete and get the best out of them. And I think definitely as an athlete, like there's a requirement of being part of a team that you have to be adaptable, and sometimes you have to adapt to the coach, and that's super important too. And I'm not saying, like pander to the athlete's needs, but I do think there can be some really small subtleties that if you kind of take the time to focus on, and that may require coaches having more conversations with the athletes outside of the field, just to kind of understand them better as a person, because I genuinely, I think probably in my capacity, both as a coach and as a leader, I have learned, it's taken me a really long time, but everyone just reacts to things completely differently. And sometimes the way you approach things with different players and athletes, you get such a different response. And so, I think taking the time to just really understand their athletes without feeling like, oh, I'm treating that person differently, because you don't want to be seen as, having favorites.
Yeah.
Difficult, but I think could be really effective.
Cool. It's great insights. Rose, your thoughts?
Yeah, I would really just probably echo exactly what Sam said around just getting to know your athletes and everyone being different. I think that's probably one of the bigger points in a team. It's really hard because you've got a lot of different personalities, and I guess everyone learns differently, even at school, not everyone learns by listening, or some people learn by doing, or so I think it's actually just taking the time to really know who's in your team, how they learn, what they're good at, find their strengths out, try and utilize their strengths, and as best you can make everyone feel valued. I think if you feel like you have a value within an environment, you're gonna turn up and try and bring your best every day. But if you feel like you're getting a bit shafted, and to be honest, you can't be everyone's friend all the time. I think difficult conversations will probably need to be had as a coach. That's just probably one of the downsides of the role, but it's necessary. And you can't, in our team, not everybody gets the same minutes on the field, and that's all something that we appreciate as part of it. But I think definitely making people feel valued and for what they're good at and what they bring is really big in getting people to bring their best. So that's what I'd say.
Fantastic. Amy?
The girls have pretty much covered it all off, but definitely agree with all of them. And just the real understanding of each player. And like Rosie said, you're not going to please everyone, but just having an understanding of what they've been doing, especially at school. Like, you might have kids going from like school, running, swimming, then to hockey, and like just understand that they might be a bit tired or something. And just try and work your best around each player, although it's not always going to work. Yeah. So just following on from the other girls, really.
Cool. So those relationship skills kind of came across. Obviously, all of your answers there. And I was in a forum the other day, and kind of they did a little poll where everybody believed that their relationship skills were more important than their sport-specific knowledge, which was interesting to note. So, that relationship piece really very key with the coaching. And of course, you also have umpires in your sport, which I'm sure you've all come across at some time. I'm sure you're all perfect angels on the turf. But occasionally, obviously, you will run across them. How do you approach your relationships kind of with the umpires to be right on the edge of your maximum performance, doing everything you can to be as effective as you can, but without kind of stepping across the line too many times? Let's start with Rose with this one, I think.
Well, I mean, you did come to the angel corner first. I usually yell at umpires. No, I think, to be honest, you want the umpires on your side, because if you're known as a team who is very aggressive towards the umpires, you're probably not going to get very far. But we also talk about it. Like, I think I've umpired before and I'm terrible. So I think probably the best way to get around an umpire is go out there and umpire a game yourself and then see if you can do it. Put yourself in their shoes. But I think also this probably leads on to like a mental skills kind of path, is that if you let yourself get distracted by umpires and the calls that they make, which most of the time are right, but at times are wrong, then you become distracted, and I think that can quite heavily affect your performance. I'm not sure if this is answering your question, but I got an off on a rant. Yeah, so I think we've talked about a lot that when the whistle blows, you turn around and you set up and you do what you have to do to play good hockey, and you don't get distracted, because there's been times when we have been distracted. You know, they've grabbed the ball, hit it down the other end, and they're in our circle before we can do anything about it. So it's something that you can't control, no matter how much you argue, unless you're in the circle and you can call the TV. You can't control. So I try not to worry about the things that I can't control. But every now and then, look, we're human, aren't we?
Yes, that's a good answer. Francis, how are you with the umpires?
I'm not too bad, I don't think. Yeah. I'm probably the same as Rose. Like, you can't get too caught up in with the umpires, as hard as it is. Your attention starts to go elsewhere, and you lose focus of your game and what you can control. As Rose said, I've probably never seen anyone change the umpire's decision if it's outside the circle. So we're quite lucky that we do have a TMO in important matches. I think during the game you can't go out there and have a chin wag with the umpire if you have an issue. You could probably go up to them at the end of the game and ask, why did you do this? Why did you do that? We often do that, or the captain can go up and question them. But yeah, definitely don't let them dictate your game. At the end of the day, it's your game and you can control it. So yeah.
Okay, Amy.
Very similar comments. I think just not letting the umpire get to you, and like the other two said, they very rarely change their decision. And hockey's so fast that if you're going to argue, the ball's already at the other end of the circle. So I think for me, it was growing up, I used to kind of argue back sometimes, but it didn't, over time I've learned that it doesn't actually get you anywhere. So the quicker you can set up, the harder it is for the opposition as well.
Yeah, important time, isn't it, when you're distracted? So Sam, I'm sure you would have asked for a couple of video reviews in your time.
Look, I think you've probably saved the worst of us until last, if I'm honest. I've definitely had my experience with one, and I know for a fact that when I was younger, I think I certainly exhibited some on-field behaviour that I am now not incredibly proud of. And I think a lot of my frustration just stemmed from the fact that I was just highly competitive, still am, hate losing, so quite easily frustrated if I thought there was a mistake from an umpire, and it took me a while, probably much longer than it should have, to realise and really actually endeavour to change my relationship with umpires. So I was probably that one player that they didn't maybe enjoy umpiring for a period of time, because they would always argue or yell or try and bring up every mistake that there was. And I think it took me, like the girl said, a long time. The umpires don't enjoy umpiring players like that. It's just it's frustrating for them, and those 50-50 calls will probably start to go against you if you're that one that's constantly in their ear about everything. I kind of, over the past couple of years, have really tried to make an effort, I suppose, to sort of change that and understand that I make mistakes as a player way more than umpires are going to make mistakes in what they're doing. Like Rose said, it is so hard to umpire. I'm terrible at it. I kind of just try and really make an effort to, if I've got something, I am someone who will ask at halftime or after the game to is when they're not willing to sort of engage in that and talk about it. But we're really lucky. Like some of our top international and domestic umpires are really happy to do that. And I know, like for example, Kelly Hudson, who's from Tauranga, she'll always have a chat after a game if I've got a question that I want to ask her about a call. Like she's really willing to sit down and talk about it. And I really enjoy that. So it's something that I've tried to make a change on. Every now and then probably the worst comes out in me, but learn a lot of lessons in that one, I think.
Yeah, I think umpires often the unsung heroes of sport, so I think obviously it doesn't take place without them. So, and as you say, when we all have a go at it, we realise how difficult the job is. We might just check in with Belinda again now at this point. Belinda, do we have any more questions?
Yes, Lillian Muir has asked, how have you picked yourself back up when you've encountered setbacks such as injuries?
You'd like to go
Who's
first?
been the most injured out of we've all had our fair share. Rose is currently injured, so maybe she's a good one to answer.
Okay. Yeah. I think it's a really difficult one because injuries are really tough things to deal with. And when I was at school, I don't really remember being injured very often. So I can probably only speak from my experience now. But I think that you've really got to love what you do so that when you get injured, you're really trying your best to get back to what you love to do. I think that's what it's got to come down to, because even though that might make it harder when you're out of the sport, it really gives you that drive and determination to do everything you can and do all the rehab and the hard work and see the physio and do your gym stuff and stay fit because you want to get back on the turf. And I think in the environment now, when we're injured, we still go along to training most of the time and we watch the girls and we're still very much involved. We don't sort of separate ourselves too much. And I think that at times it can be a bit boring sitting around the turf, picking up balls or just sitting there if you've got an injured foot. But it does really motivate you to want to be back training alongside everybody. So, I think in short, you just have to understand that injuries are part of it. Our work is our bodies, and so we're bound to hurt ourselves at some stage. But just keep remembering the reasons why you do it and use those reasons to drive you to get back. Lastly, I remember one of my injuries. I wrote up a big 6 week. I was out for 6 weeks, and I just wrote the whole 6 weeks in a calendar, and I had it all planned out and I ticked it off as I went. And that was a really good practical way for me to stay focused and get the most out of my broken self as I could before I to be able to get back to the team. So that's what I'd say.
Cool. Great answer, Rose.
Dave,
yeah.
Dave, I have another good question.
Good.
What do you do to help the new players to the team cope with the pressure?
Well, we might go to Sam for this one.
That's the end of that question. Could you just repeat that, Belinda?
What do you do to help the new players to the team cope with the pressure?
Oh yeah, it's such a hard one. Like I think just trying to create an environment where the first couple of games you're really encouraging them to do what they were selected for. So like new players are always selected because they probably show a trait that the coach of the team really love, whether it's they're super fast or they shoot the ball in the circle, they're really nuggety when they defend. And I think it's really important, in those first couple of games, like you're thinking about as a new player, thinking about the game plan and, what if I do this and what if I do this, and you kind of catastrophize everything, and it can be really stressful. So I think as a coach or an older player or a leader, just kind of recognize what that strength is and that trait that they've been selected for, and really just encourage them to use that, because that's what they will feel most comfortable doing. So, yeah.
Cool. Great response. Thanks, girls. What we might just do, check in for a moment. We have with us on the call as well, we have Emma from Tauranga Hockey and Jamie from Bay of Plenty Hockey. I think, Emma, if you'd like to just quickly turn your video and your mic on and just give us a little update of what's happening at Tauranga Hockey at the moment.
Yeah, hi guys. I'm just going to hand over to Jamie. Jamie's going to give a quick update first, and then I'll just jump in after him.
Go for gold, Jamie.
Hey everyone. Thanks, ladies, for jumping on and sharing some great insight. It's been great to listen along and follow the chat as well. As with everyone, Bay of Plenty Hockey, we're kind of in a bit of a state of shock and trying to work through this situation. But there's lots of work going on behind the scenes in the coach development space and in the organisation space. So just rest assured that we're working hard to kind of get hockey up and going again for all of you in a safe environment. So that's really exciting, and things are moving in a positive way, which is great. I think one of the things that I've kind of picked up, Dave, you touched on a little bit earlier, is some of the stuff around Balance is Better. And the Balance is Better website is just a fantastic place for parents and coaches to go to read a few articles about the state of play and where we're kind of heading. So I just kind of chuck it out there that's a good place to kind of head over to and read a few articles and get your headspace right before we kind of start cracking into the season again. Emma.
Cool, thanks Jamie. Yeah, just reiterating what Jamie's been saying, thank you so much, ladies, for jumping on. I'm sure both of our communities are really loving hearing the answers and just really, it's exciting and it's probably getting them really excited for the season coming up. Just quickly from both Jamie and I, we do have some upcoming coaching workshops that we'll be doing online and then in person when we can, but just keep an eye out on both of our websites and all social media channels that we can provide you with as much support and as many opportunities as we can throughout this tough time. But yeah, keep going, keep smiling, and we are all looking forward to having everyone back at the turf when we can.
Cool. Thanks, Emma. That's great. Belinda, can we take one more question? What time?
Okay. This is from Gus. What importance have you and your coaches put on understanding your why, and how have you done that? Why are you in the sport that you are in? Why do you want to achieve? Sorry, that's a long question.
Okay. Let's start maybe with Francis this time.
Yeah, that's quite a tough question. I've just got it up here because it's quite a long one. What importance have you and your coaches put on your understanding? I'll start with the second one because it's easier, but I think I'm in the sport that I am in because it's obviously a team sport and I love being continuously pushed by my teammates, always wanting to be a better player. And yeah, sorry, I don't actually really know what else to say with that at the moment. It's quite a tough question.
So do the people that the coaches that you work with kind of talk to you about the reason why you are putting yourself through all this to get into the Black Sticks?
Yeah, I guess so. It's important. The coaches are always having that and knowing why you're there. This is quite a tough question. Someone else want to answer it?
to help answer.
Yeah. Sam, do you want to jump in there?
That we've got our sort of I was saying we're really lucky that as well as our coaches, we've got a range of support staff. So both our psychologist and what we call like our athlete life advisor, they put quite a big emphasis on that why. So particularly like we have an athlete life advisor that we have to sit down with every 6 months or so, and she looks at all the different aspects of our life, like our family, our work, our bits and pieces that we might need help with, but having that why is a really big one. So understanding, like what it is that you are wanting to achieve out of hockey. Is it the actual, like physical achievement of wanting to come first or second or third, or are there other skills that you want to learn out of it? And I think having that understanding, and you might not have it straight away. Like sometimes it takes a little while to figure out what makes you tick. It happens when you're a little bit older, but if you don't have that sort of sense of purpose and why, then on those like hard days where it's 5 o'clock in the morning and you're going to training, like if you don't have that why, it's super hard to motivate yourself. And not saying you'll be motivated every day if you have a sense of your why and your purpose, but it's certainly something that will be helpful when it gets a little bit tougher.
Yeah, getting
Thanks,
the
Eddie.
cool. Very
Got back.
We might come back to some more questions a little bit later from the chat. We've just got a couple more to get through as time kind of flies through. So really quickly, from a technical standpoint, what do you think are some of the key foundations that you need to develop as a player coming through to essentially go on and become world class? Maybe we'll start with Amy here.
I think for me, going back to basics and learning the basics first before you execute the more technical skills, that would definitely be something that I would do again if I was to. But I mean, like we got a new coach last year and he took us back to basics of pushing, trapping, hitting before every training. And I don't know, you're quite sore after that, but it was such an improvement already. Like we had some of the highest stats of mistrapping the ball, so just doing that before each training was so helpful. And then I also think like having good S&C behind you and getting the right technique early. I think you don't need to be in the gym at such a young age, but when you do, making sure you're getting the right technique and making sure you're doing it properly so that you're not causing injuries elsewhere that would cause further harm further on.
Yeah, great. So foundations physically and foundations in basic technical skills. Yeah, it's great. Yeah. Rose, your thoughts?
I'd say just if you can do the basics, just like Amy said, as much as you can when you're young, it really holds you well in the future. I've found through some of the coaching that I've done, I often find that kids are really excited about skills such as a reverse tomahawk 180 side flip. And unfortunately, unfortunately, those sorts of skills I would barely use in a game. I think in international hockey, you're not encouraged to have the ball for very long because there's someone just as good, if not better, on the other side ready to tackle you. So if you can trap and pass and hit from A to B, you will be surprised at how far you can go with very little finesse. And I think definitely having good ball handling, like if you can eliminate people or eliminate defenders well, that's also very helpful. I think hand speed is important in hockey. Definitely, and that just comes from practice. So that's what I'd say, like technically for the sport, and obviously physically, I agree with Amy on that one.
Cool. So there's a bit of consensus there. So I think we'll move through to the next question as time's pressing. Maybe Francis, if you went through your time again, is there anything that you would change to date? What's one thing that you might change today?
Yeah, probably working on my basics. As we talked the other day, I went to St. Peter's in Cambridge and I had a hockey turf just down the road, like 100 metres down the road. And not once during my 3 years, I went out there in my own time and just hit a ball by myself. I was pretty lazy. But if you look at the world's best team, like the Dutch, that's what they're good at. But that's only to a certain extent. It's not like going out there hours on end and hitting the ball, because that gets quite tedious, changing it up. And I think that's what I definitely struggle in today, which is quite sad to say, has been in the New Zealand team, is what you probably should be, what you're best at. But it's just simple things like going around cones and passing the ball, trapping the ball, the 2-touch pass, and just getting the accuracy of it as well, as it takes time away on the ball for the opposition as well.
Cool. Sam, you've been a been around a little bit longer than Frances. What's one thing you'd change? I
think back when I was at school age, I think it sort of relates right into, what I found most difficult when I was at school is just having, I suppose, some support through that decision making of, learning and how to say no and when that is the best time. I look back on a few times, like I remember, being at one end of the North Island and driving to the other, from hockey to cross country to athletics. And don't get me wrong, I 100% wanted to do all of it. But I think there were so many things that I should have said no to, and I probably would have been far better off if I had. I think, in the moment I felt it was so imperative for me to do that. But I just think having maybe some sort of, mentorship or support around that planning and decision making, because young kids don't have those skills, and even to some extent parents, they want their kid to be involved because they don't want them to feel like they're missing out either. And so who at the end of the day is the one that makes that decision and who knows what's best? I don't think anyone really fully understands. So yeah, I think just having some of that support around when it's best to say no to things or to pull back from things, I think would be so helpful for a young athlete like myself that was super busy across not just hockey but so many different sports.
Yeah, cool. Oh, I think Belinda, have we got a couple more questions there?
Yes, we've got one from Brenda. What tips or advice can you provide for players to develop confidence and be more assertive on the field?
So who'd like to do that one? Rose, would you like to start with that one?
Sure. Well, I'm not very assertive or confident. I was, for one, really struggled actually with confidence, not so much off the field but on the field when I first made the team. And I think it's just because I had set such high standards for myself, and I probably didn't give myself enough leeway, I guess, and actually just taking the time to learn and to be able to get up to the pace and the speed that I needed to be able to play good hockey. And I think in New Zealand, as much as we do have pretty good development routes to get into senior professional teams, we're not like other European countries, say, or we don't have quite a big enough setup such as we do with rugby, that before you make the All Blacks, you've played in other leagues which have a massive following, big crowds, so you're kind of prepared for what you face when you make the New Zealand team. So I'd say in my case, probably you're not getting 60,000 to a school game, but that's probably what I struggled with a bit when I made the Black Sticks, was that I felt the pressure a lot, and when I went to play, what I could do in training I couldn't do out on the field, and that comes down to mental skills, I'd say, and those can be really hard to train, but they're just as important as any hockey training or physical training that you do. And actually, I'll plug one of our teammates here, Brooke Neal. She set up an online platform that you can go through, where she actually teaches school-age kids about mental skills and how to be confident in themselves, and actually balance hockey or balance sport with school. I think moving on to being aggressive, I hate to say it's nature, but some players aren't aggressive, and I think that's also okay. Everyone has different playing styles. So yeah, I probably can't answer that, because I think unless one of the other girls wants to jump in, I think it's probably really unique for the individual. But yeah, I'd say probably what I've said on confidence is what I can attest to. I don't know if any of the other girls have aggressive.
I think maybe with the aggression thing, it's trying to understand why it lacks in the first place. So sometimes sometimes for some people it might be, like with hockey, the fear of failure of a mistake. So if you're aggressive and you make a decision to go and make a tackle really strongly or make a pass, often people's sort of fear of failure of making a mistake will hold them back from doing it with intent. So, if it's working through that, okay, what happens if I make a mistake? Nothing. The game goes on, like everything keeps happening, then that might allow a little bit more of that aggression. Sometimes, like I know with hockey, like we play with a hard ball and hard stick, so some people might genuinely just be, like afraid of getting hurt, and so then it's working through that. Okay, if the ball hits my shin pad, is it going to be that sore? No, or is it going to be? I think, yeah, maybe trying to get to the bottom of what does hold that player back, and then trying to work on it, because I think it can be a raft of different reasons.
Yeah, no, I think you hit a few nails on the head there. I think the failure piece, I think, is huge. Failing is just a learning opportunity in disguise. So I think that fear of failing, and a lot of young people in terms of their confidence is a big thing. I think Jamie's put the link up for Brooks details there as well for you to have a little look at. Time is pressing now. We're just going to come to the last question that we're going to ask you all. Obviously Gold Coast 2018, obviously a memorable time for you all, and great that all four of you were in that playing group. What do you believe was a significant factor in regards to that performance? Kind of not necessarily just that you won, but kind of the manner in which you did it. I mean, it was 4-1, I think, wasn't it? And it was a comprehensive performance. It wasn't just a we snuck at 1-0 or penalties or whatever. What was the significant factor that got you that gold medal on that day? Let's start with Amy.
I think there was just a real good vibe in the group. We all just had this feeling that it was going to happen, and you could just sense in the group that it was a really good atmosphere and time to be in. We'd have a meeting the day before, just everyone expressing their thoughts. If you're nervous, just everyone getting it out. And I think for me that was really helpful, and just to get a sense of what everyone was feeling like going into the final. And then also it felt like we were a real team. It didn't matter if you played 60 minutes or 5 minutes, everyone was real trusting of the process. So I think, that was really good, that it didn't matter who you were still valued in the team.
Fantastic. And Frances?
Yeah, I'll definitely agree with Amy on that. There was definitely that good feeling in the team and the team culture, whereas there always is for every game and tournament, I suppose. But I don't know, you just had that feeling that, we were going to do this, and we're all on the same page and knew what the plan was before every game, and therefore every individual was confident in what they were doing. I felt like we're a bit different, but we were physically fit as well. It was a lot hotter there, and we had people playing full minutes near the end, and it was just pretty impressive, and it was pretty cool beating Aussie on their home turf in front of their home crowd. So that
was pretty cool.
Yeah,
I've got to say, Rose, what are your thoughts that time?
Yeah, feels like so long ago now. God, trying to really recall the information. I think that probably when we played Aussie and the first time they in the tournament, they sort of rattled us, especially in the first quarter, first half. They were really aggressive. They really came at us. We managed to withstand the pressure, and Sam will be able to remind me what the score was. I'm so bad like this. In the game when we first played Aussie, was it 0-0 or 1-0? Maybe, yeah. And then I think when we came to the final, we really knew that we were prepared for the game, that we were playing as a team, we were cohesive as a unit. We really wanted it, and as a group, we weren't going to let anybody take that away from us. And we've been in those situations before where we've had the opportunity and haven't managed to pull through. And I think looking next to you, either side, left and right, and knowing that you're standing next to somebody who really has your back, and that will do anything for you, you'll do anything for them. And that's the beauty of a team. And so when we came into that last game and, we started scoring goals and we were having fun, we were playing as a unit, I think it just clicked and it felt right. And we gave it 100%.
Yep.
So,
Maybe the Aussies are hiding.
yeah, did we what?
Sam.
Yeah, look, I'm probably just echoing that other girls a little bit. Like, I think certainly we were all on, the same page of what we're trying to achieve on that day specifically. I think it's interesting if you look back to the start of the tournament, didn't go perfectly well. Like, we had the draw against Australia. We also drew against Canada, which maybe gave us a little bit of a kick up the bum, maybe what we needed. But having, I think, everyone sort of understand the game plan and the way of playing makes a huge difference. You genuinely had the feeling that everyone was there for the team. Sometimes in really big events like the Commonwealth Games and the Olympics, you get people who are, just genuinely happy to be there, or say they're an Olympian or a Commonwealth athlete. But you got the sense that, everyone there was there for the team. Like, I'll use Amy as an example. She only went on at the very end of the final, and she wasn't annoyed about not playing many minutes. She came on and she won a penalty corner almost straight away, which secured us, I think, the third or fourth goal of that game. So even though she might have could have been someone who felt a bit ripped off sitting on the sideline, like, she was so incredibly supportive, and as soon as she got out there, she did her job and helped secure that last goal. So just having people like that in the team was pretty incredible. I think the really interesting thing, though, is that all three of us and myself also agree is that you kind of had this feeling, right, this vibe, and you knew it was going to happen, and it's actually really difficult to pinpoint exactly why there was that feeling. Like, was it because everyone was on the same page, or we all knew the game plan, or everyone was there, for the team? Like, it's really hard to actually pinpoint exactly why that's happened. I've only really we spoke about the same feeling at Oceania Cup last year. Like, you just had this feeling that it was going to work, and I think as a group we're actually still trying to come to terms with, okay, why did we feel that way, and how do we replicate that again? Because it's not just like a switch, like you can't just turn it on and off. So yeah, I think we're still trying to learn, even 2 years on, and from last year's Oceania Cup win, what was it? What was that? Those few things, or those few critical things that gave us that feeling? Because I still don't know if we know exactly what it was. It's bizarre how sometimes you just have this unexplainable feeling.
Yeah, it feels from what you're saying, kind of that genuine self-belief that some people say they believe but don't really mean it, whereas you're all coming from the heart there. When you're talking about that. And it was really interesting, actually, where you all got together the day before and had that tell everybody how they're feeling, because you'll all think, oh, they're feeling this, they're feeling that. I think that's kind of quite a good way to let everything out, and everybody's back in the same boat. We all know what we're thinking and feeling before we get out there. But
yeah, it was kind of a new thing that we only started, I think, at the Commonwealth Games. It might have been before the semi-final, because we highlighted the semi-final as a game that we typically don't do so well in, because we often lose semi-finals. And so I think it might have even been our coach Mark at the time who said, hey, why don't we get you girls in a room and start talking about your experiences of semi-final? How are you feeling? And like you say, all of a sudden, the youngest person in the team sitting next to the oldest, and they're like, oh, you're nervous too. Okay, that makes me feel better about it. And that those meetings have actually, they've been really positive for us. They don't always work wonders. Sometimes you can go out the next day and not play so well, but we've had really positive experiences from just getting the players in a room and just talking about how they're feeling. Did they have any questions about the game plan? It was a really safe space to sort of express that.
Cool. That sounds like it was a fantastic experience from you all, and watching, if anybody gets a chance, watch that video again of the final. I watched a bit of it the other day myself to get a kind of a feel of that, and you all went completely nuts at the end there. It was great to see. We've probably come to the end of our questions now, ladies. I think before we kind of wind things up, I just want to thank everybody that's tuned in this evening to listen to the ladies and gain some insight into their world and what they've done to get there. In the coming days and months, I suspect that the coaches and the umpires and the administrators and everything within sport are going to become important people in getting us all back on track and back into some sort of normality as we head out of this. To Sam, Rose, Amy and Francis, thank you very much for your time and your insights, and of course your service to hockey in New Zealand and locally as you've done over the course of the years. Thanks also in the background to Belinda, Trudy, Emma, Janine and Jamie for their input and helping us keep on track in the evening. And probably just for those of you on there still, we've got one more webinar in the series that will take place Wednesday week, the 20th of May. And our guest that evening will be none other than Mr. Kane Williamson, who will be doing a piece around what makes teams tick and details of that. Then we'll go out through Coaching Passport on our website and social media. So keep an eye out for that. Even though you may be hockey lovers, I'm sure there's things that you want to hear from Kane too. So thanks very much again, ladies. If you've got any comments you want to put in the chat as you leave from tonight's forum, we're happy to receive those. But thanks again for everything and your time this evening, ladies. Thanks very much. And stay safe, everyone, and good night.
Thank you.
Cool. Thank you for having us.
See you
Thanks, ladies.
later.
You've been great.